It's a real honor to welcome you here tonight at the Premier Business Center, PBC, a theme founded by Jarden Alexis, where heart, thoughts, and imagination come together. Exceptional events are held here, and tonight we are lucky to discover the unique literary world of Murray Emily, who will be introduced in a moment by Jarden Alexis. This event has been held as a text-only chat conference, where Murray Emily generously shared his work, The Corsean Encounter. To make it easier to follow for all audiences, I chose to add a voiceover, which doesn't reflect the author's real voice, but aims to carry his intention and depth. The video is automatically subtitled by YouTube, so you can follow and translate it in your native language if needed. Thank you for your understanding, and I wish you a beautiful and inspiring experience.
Greetings, everyone. I am Jarden Alexis, the owner and creator of the Premier Business Center, also known as PBC, and it is my true pleasure to welcome each one of you to PBC Hot Off the Press with real-life author Murray M. Lee, who is also very well known around the Second Life grid as Bixel Shufton, the owner of the SL Newser. I'll tell you a little bit about PBC. The Premier Business Center is a global virtual business park where we have conference rooms, classrooms, auditoriums, the PBC Performance Hall, the PBC Cultural Arts Center. We have the PBC Computer Lab and co-work space. We have the PBC Resource Center, the PBC Writer Stand, the PBC Artist Loft, and several casual and formal event areas. PBC is a professional sim where business owners and entertainers can work together in order to market, network, collaborate, and socialize, as well as expand their groups. If you have any questions about today's event or PBC, please don't hesitate to message me during the meet and greet portion of this event or at any time afterwards, and I will be more than happy to schedule tours or answer your questions. As you all know, we are here to celebrate the launch of real-life author Murray M. Lee's new science fiction and fantasy release titled The Corsean Encounter. If you look around the auditorium, as well as the reception hall, which is located next door through the double doors to your left, you will see many displays with the author's book covers. If you touch any one of the displays, you will be directed to the Amazon website for the Corsean Encounter. As I have previously mentioned to many of you, if you like sci-fi, you are going to love the Corsean Encounter. I won't delve into any details of the novel, since we are honored to have the amazing author here with us, and he will discuss the details of his work. But without giving away any spoilers, I will at least say that the Corsean Encounter is a work that promises a unique adventure. It is destined to captivate the hearts and minds of all who love sci-fi, and it is a thrilling journey into science fiction and fantasy that will be adored for years to come by many fans of the genre. In part of my introduction, I will take a moment to read the author's bio, and after that we will hear directly from none other than the real-life creator of the Corsean Encounter. And the bio of Mr. Murray M. Lee reads as follows. Bixel Shufton known in real life as Murray M. Lee, is best known in Second Life as the editor and one of the writers for the Second Life Newser. He started writing news articles for a previous paper, the Second Life newspaper, in 2007, and continued until 2010 when it closed and the Newser opened. To this day, the Newser reports on the people, places, and events across Second Life, updating daily, and gets read up to 80,000 times a month. But Bixel is also a longtime writer of fiction on the internet from 1999 to 2007. He would post short stories and a couple long ones on a science fiction website, a writer's block. While he would take a break, he never did give up writing fiction, and eventually started posting a few tales on Deviant Art page, as well as some creative Second Life fiction for the Newser that were often done for sponsors. Around 2014, he started his next project, The Corsean Encounter, a science fiction novel about humankind's accidental first contact with an alien race via two humans finding a strange machine in a cave and it transporting them to a medieval colonial age world. Progress on writing the story would be slow, but Bixel would eventually complete it, and in December 2024, it would finally be published. Work continues on the sequel, titled Prelude to War, and an unrelated fantasy story, Tales of a Metamorph. Since I know that everyone is eager to hear from our author, as I take my seat, let's all go ahead and welcome none other than the real-life author, Mr. Murray M. Lee, or Bixel Shufton of the SL Newsletter.
For a time, I was posting short stories, mostly science fiction, on a website from about 1999 to 2007. Writing fiction slowed down after starting online reporting, but didn't stop. I've been continuing to write short stories, including one piece of SL fiction, and Lyndon doing a TV commercial. Eventually, I went back to a story idea I'd put aside for a while, that of humans contacting aliens who aren't spacefaring but have a technology a bit less than ours. The original concept was that of a soldier from an industrial age planet whose team comes across a spaceship, and when their enemies attack, he uses its transporter, which sends him to Earth. I'd worked on this for a while in my college years. But after a while, I noticed some plot weaknesses, so put it aside to work on later. Eventually came the idea of a prequel story taking place many years before. At first I planned it to be a chapter or two as a background tale in a larger story, but then came the idea of a story of its own. And so I started writing down what I would eventually name the Corsean Encounter. As printed on the back of the book, the synopsis is as follows. Theodore Smith, sentenced to a Soviet gulag, gets a second chance when the train he's on has a wreck in Central Asia. Making his way south with his companion Leonid Kokhanov, they're ambushed by Muslim tribesmen and have to seek shelter in a cave they stumble upon. Finding a strange machine, it teleports them to another cave. They emerge not on Earth, but another world, running into some of its not quite human inhabitants whom live under medieval conditions. The initially friendly encounter turns hostile when they're captured by a local lord, who turns them over to his superior. After a period of time in which Theodore learns the local language, the overlord takes the two humans to his emperor as a gift. At the imperial palace, they learn more about the land and its people. They get attention from some people who see value in their knowledge. They also run into the ambassador of a nearby land, which is somewhat more advanced and not an empire but a republic, Gideon. But some consider the humans little more than monsters, whose lives are of no real value. Can Theodore and Leonid convince enough people of importance that they deserve more than a lifetime in a dungeon, or worse? And what can they do for the Gideon Republic, which many in the Empire want to settle old scores with? Besides science fiction, it also fits into a few other genres. It's a first contact story, humanity's first contact with another sapient race. It's also portal fiction, the protagonist ending up transported to another world. It could also be considered medieval, colonial age, as there's very little super tech. So, what influenced my writing of this story? I've read my share of science fiction and history, so both helped in the writing of the tale. While some of the former was Star Wars and Star Trek, much of it was pretty different. One school teacher in grade school loaned me a story called The Well World, in which dozens of races existed on the planet in the tale. The areas they lived in limited how high their technology could be. One novel a friend lent me was Rally Cry, in which Union forces on a steamship in 1865 end up getting lost in the Bermuda Triangle and end up on a strange alien world, eventually having to help defend the locals from a terrifying enemy. And there are others I don't have the time to mention. The story, The Corsean Encounter, starts on Earth. As mentioned in the synopsis, it starts off with the main character, Theodore Smith, on a prison train in Central Asia on its way to a prison camp in Siberia. Theodore insists he's done nothing but help build the new society, and the more talkative of his fellow inmates, Leonid Kokhanov, comments the reason the American got into trouble was because whatever abilities he had, the authorities saw him as more useful as a scapegoat for their troubles. Fortunately for the two of them, they get a chance at escape when the train wrecks, and they and several other survivors among the prisoners and injured enough to walk begin making their way south. They are hoping to eventually make their way outside Soviet lands and then to a city where they can get to the west, but their plans go awry when they're ambushed by nomads. Theodore, Leonid, and one other who escape the bullets duck into a cave for safety and at the other end find some strange machine. It takes them to another cave where they emerge in a forest that at first they think is somewhere else on Earth, but Theodore soon notices some of the plants and animals look strange. Eventually, they get to a village and soon see the people of this world aren't quite human. There's naturally initial surprise and alarm, but thankfully a confrontation with the peasants is avoided. But just as they're making peace, the local ruler of the territory arrives with his guards, and despite Theodore and Leonid taking down or disabling several of them and their animals, the three humans end up captured. They and the old peasant they made peace with, Kamar, are then taken to another part of the province to the Lord Superior, where the humans are thrown in the dungeon. With the help of Kamar, over the next several weeks Theodore learns the local language. But unfortunately, the third human does not survive the illness that the germs of this alien world brings on them. Eventually, their captor, Overlord Soren, decides to bring the two humans with him to present them to the land's emperor as a gift. So they're taken to the imperial palace where the majority of the story takes place. The two humans meet up with various people there, some friendly to them, some not. Some are genuinely curious and interested in these strange new people. Others are thinking more about how useful their knowledge might be. But a number only see them as monsters, fit only as curiosities behind a cage or to be used in arenas or chased down as hunters as prey. Of the world and its people, the planet Corsean is about the same size as Earth, with close to the same ratio of land and water with several continents. The biggest difference between it and Earth with its biology is the mammals. There are fewer in diversity and smaller in size, the largest being about the size of an opossum. The intelligent life of the world, the humanoid Magyar, come from an order that is warm-blooded and bears live young, but has thin feathers instead of actual hair. Magyar closely resemble humans to the point they could be easily mistaken for one a distance away. Besides the head feathering, other differences are for fingers per hand, 3 fingers and a thumb, larger pupils, and depending on the race either grayish or light green skin. Elsewhere, there's a third race of Magyar, but none of them appear in the novel. On average, a healthy Magyar is about a foot shorter than a human. The difference is greater if you're talking about a poor peasant who grew up without much protein in the diet. It's very rare to find a Corsean taller than an Earther. In the novel, only one is seen. The 4 fingers per hand has one notable effect on their thinking. Their numbers are in base 8, meaning their 10 is our 8, their 20 is our 16, and so on. Each of the continents are inhabited, though in the novel all the action takes place on one, Wistra. Working on the background history, I had the greater crises of the land take place about every 4 generations, about 80 years apart, give or take, with a religious or spiritual revival of some kind taking place about a generation later. In the back of the book is a chronology of some events in the history of the continent. For thousands of years, it was inhabited only by primitive green tribes. The continent was discovered by accident by sailors from a continent named Estable, which was populated by gray Magyar a millennia and a half earlier. But not much more was done until almost 1,000 years before the time in the story when a horrible pandemic struck Estable, comparable to Earth's Black Plague. Almost 100% of those who caught the wither ended up dying a slow, agonizing death, so thousands fled to Wistra in whatever ship they could get, from farmers and laborers to nobles. The latter would establish new territories under their rule in the new lands. At first they got along with the green tribes okay, but unfortunately the history between them became much like between Europeans and their descendants and American Indians, deepened by wariness that frequently erupted into conflict, with the less advanced people gradually being forced back. That is until the arrival of the Aswan. The Aswan were also a green-skinned people, but more advanced than the Western tribes, about medieval in technology. Monotheistic, they believed their god had given them and those who would join them dominion over the continent. The green tribes quickly joined up with them, and the Aswan Empire became a threat to the Grey Kingdoms and Principalities, halting their advance and soon reversing it. The Greys would eventually unite under the Idian Empire, and the Aswan advance was halted, and eventually the Idians began to advance. One highly successful Idian general was made the provincial ruler of the Idian Empire's most northern lands, and the place was allowed to basically govern itself. The general wanted the people of the land, which he called Gideon, a say in how things were run, and it eventually became a republican form of government. People poor and middle class kept migrating there, and the land became prosperous, but partially because of jealousy about its good economy and partially because of runaway peasants who kept fleeing to there. Eventually, an emperor tried to set things right with decrees and a personally appointed ruler who didn't know or care how things had been done. It didn't help that this emperor had an ego so big he fancied himself a god. The result was constant civil unrest. Finally, the palace guard captain, who had been a former ruler of Gideon, eventually arranged for a palace coup, and the emperor was forced at sword point to let Gideon go. Despite the loss of Gideon, the Idian Empire continued to advance on the Aswan Empire. By the time the novel takes place, the Aswan Empire has been reduced to its capital and the land around it. Gideon itself has somewhat more advanced technology than the Idian territories at the time the story starts, just a few decades from the start of an industrial revolution. Of the characters, the story has a number. Theodore Smith is an American engineer and WW1 veteran who went to Soviet Russia to help build what to him was a fascinating new kind of society. But eventually he was seen as more useful by the higher-ups as a prisoner. Friendly and idealistic, he is knowledgeable on many subjects. Leonid Kakanov is a veteran of WW1 who signed up with the Red Army, but soon learned the Bolsheviks were not what they promised, and also ended up a prisoner. In contrast to Theodore's idealism, he can be quite cynical, on occasion ruthless. Still, he likes Theodore, genuinely wishing him well. The rest of the notable characters are of the planet's inhabitants. The Magyar Kamar was one of the oldest men in the village Theodore and Leonid stumble across. Friendly and humble, he eventually learns English through Theodore, as well as teaching him the local language, and is amazed of his tales about Earth. Minister Lord Kiomp is the chief of affairs at the Imperial Palace. Cool and collected, he seldom smiles or expresses strong emotion, though on occasion does. Ganich Prusselin is the current captain of Castle Guard. Once the overlord of the province of Beldolin, the emperor removed him from that position when he made some certain decisions he didn't like. Prusselin is as much a metacrat as an aristocrat and looks at men for what they can do, not just who they are. Cybele Miriam is a giantess who had been presented to the emperor as an entertainer, the tallest person on the continent. A bookworm, Kiomp has her assigned part-time to the castle library. Dr. Nebman and Neb Nilkar is scientist, inventor, and diplomat, currently the ambassador of the Gideon Republic to the Idian Empire. Curious and friendly, he is fascinated by the humans not just for their technology, but wants to learn about them and their world for knowledge's sake. There are many other characters deserving of mention, but there's not enough time at this event. I spent much time in the writing of the story on the world building, which comes across with the discussions between the humans and other characters and occasionally some action, such as meals showing what the locals eat. And well, when Theodore talks about what foods are eaten on Earth, the reactions vary from interest to fascination to laughter. It's also notable one of the first Earth items the Magyar adopt and make for themselves is how to make one particular kind of desert. Another part of the story is the major rivalries. For instance, the overlords do not always get along. They often compete with one another for the emperor's favor and sometimes get into petty rivalries, which to some extent the emperor encourages. The Greys and Greens have not gotten along for centuries. As mentioned earlier, when Grey colonization started, conflict started soon afterwards, with the result being the tribes slowly were forced back over time. When the Aswan peoples arrived and absorbed what tribes in the south that were left, they made a comeback. But when the Greys united under Idian, once again they were forced back. While some nobles trade with Gideon and see value in its scientists' discoveries, others are still hostile to the traders, some looking forward to the chance to try and conquer them, unfazed by stories of superior weaponry and rumors of even better weapons in secret development. Both Gideon and the Idian Empire are in an unofficial alliance against the remnants of the Aswan Empire. Some Gideon will wonder if once the Aswan are gone, the Empire will go after them. Over the course of the story, much happens. There's action. There's blood. There's also some death. Not every character makes it to the end, and one ends up with a permanent disability. There's also some romance. Two characters end up falling in love. There's also an off-color joke or two. Many of the locals, from nobles to learned men to peasants, are fascinated with the stories from the humans about their technology and what it can do, from fast travel to flight to huge cities and much more. Not going to give away the ending, but there's a resolution at the end of the novel, and it's clear something big will be happening later on. The sequel starts off where the first novel leaves off. There are new situations and challenges for the characters. With more action away from the Imperial Palace, there are many more scenes. There are also new characters introduced. The knowledge from talking to the humans starts to be put into action. At least one of the humans makes an attempt to get back to Earth and civilization. While I don't want to give too much away, the second novel is when the real villains of the series make their appearance. As the sequel is prelude to war, it's obvious what happens in the third story, which is still being worked on. As for my other projects, I'm still writing for the Newser. Of course, and this will not change. I intend to keep writing for it as long as I can. I'm also working on a fantasy tale unrelated to the Corsean story. Tales of a Metamorph. About a regular guy from Earth who ends up yanked into a fantasy world of sword and sorcery, who soon after arriving discovers he has a new ability, which gets better over time. I have other ideas for stories, but they will have to wait, or just remain short stories that I post once in a while. And before I conclude, I would like to thank Nydia and Dusk for their help in editing the story, and my appreciation to Gemma, who has stuck with me at the Newser all these years.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's all go ahead and give another big round of applause for our outstanding author, Mr. Murray Emily, and his novel, The Corsean Encounter. Mr. Lee, or should I say this, for sharing your journey, your vision, and your insights. The one thing that truly stands out is that our shared belief that science fiction's greatest value is exploring the human condition through its futuristic lens. I do encourage all of you to continue following this author. Visit his Amazon websites which I will post in local for you, as well as follow him on social media. And don't forget to purchase the Corsean Encounter on sale today at Amazon. And I'll go ahead and post the links for Amazon USA, Amazon Canada, and Amazon UK and local right now. But in closing, I would like to thank all of you, our audience, for continuously supporting my vision and efforts, as well as contributing to the growth of PBC. Each of you have had a role in some way or another, whether showing up at events, making donations, or your words of encouragement. You are appreciated. I cannot thank you all for supporting this event today, and I can't thank you enough. And as I often have already said, there is no PBC without you. I cannot leave without acknowledging and thanking the people that has assisted with today's event. Our author, Mr. Miriam Lee, our PBC Crusader, Ms. Rhyme Gardner, who's also the greeter for today. Our photographers, thank you, Tila E. I know that without your saying that you have been taking photos to post on Facebook, so thank you. Thank you to our videographer, Tara of Haven Bridge, who films all of the PBC events and posts them in French and in English. And most importantly, thank each and every one of you. Now, last but not least, certainly not least, I would like to take this time to give a very special thank you to Mr. Brevet Benoit, my SL partner, who has attended every PBC event until he couldn't, and has so lovingly and patiently encouraged and supported everything that I do here at the Premier Business Center. I will ask that you all please keep him and his family, as well as his SL family, in your prayers and your thoughts. We do have an after-party reception in the reception hall that's going to be located through the double doors to your left, where we will listen to amazing tunes of our DJ Nydia. And we do want to give a great big thank you to DJ Nydia. But for entertaining us during this event. But we will go ahead and continue to get to know the author in the after party or reception next door. So you'll be able to continue to ask questions if you have any questions. So at this time, let's please head over to the reception hall that is located in this auditorium and through the double doors. And Bix and I will meet you there. Thank you again for supporting this event. Thank you again for being here. I cannot thank you all enough. I'll see you on the other side of the reception, for the reception.